now, Take 12 Radio presents a Monkey Man's interview segment from the Evolution of Addiction Treatment Conference 2015.
Welcome to Take 12 Recovery Radio for a very short segment, a piece of an interview with Gary Sherwin from the Evolution of Addiction Treatment Conference 2015. Here is a sneak preview of some of what you may be hearing coming up on Friday, February 27th, for the full interview with Gary as he shares his experience, strength, and hope, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today. Here's Gary and myself at the conference. Sitting across from me right now is a gentleman I met last night at the dinner. He sat next to me and my wife, Marcia, at the awards banquet last night. Gary Sherwin, right? That's almost going over my... and you are from the L.A. area.
Correct.
Ventura County.
Right.
And so Gary, you're not a clinician.
Correct.
Okay, and you're not a treatment counselor.
Not yet.
But you working on it?
I am working on it.
Tell us about that.
I'm at UCLA taking a certification program to become a drug and alcohol abuse counselor.
Okay, and why? Why is this a passion of yours?
You know, it's interesting. My sobriety date is August 28th, 2001. And I was married for 35 years. My wife passed away a year ago, September. We raised 2 children. We lived in a nice area. I got a DUI. I had to go to AA. I knew nothing about AA. I was up in years. I was 57 years old when I walked into AA as a result of the DUI. Didn't think I was an alcoholic. I knew I liked to party. But... heard a few things that resonated with me, and so that's where my journey began. And a couple of things that I heard that I remembered that were impactful for me was, the only requirement to be in AA was a desire to quit drinking, and I had that desire for about a year. I played a lot of club tennis, and after each match, they would have water, soda, and beer, and I was drinking 4 or 5 beers just to quench my thirst, and I had that awareness, and I said, well, next week I'll have the water, and next week I automatically reached for the beer. So I knew I had a problem. I wanted to quit for about a year, didn't know how. So when I got my DUI and got into AA, that was just kind of a natural progression, I guess, and really it saved my life because I was in a downward spiral, even though, again, I had a nice house, I had nice cars, and that's the way that I used to tell my story about that. I was a high bottom drunk, so to speak.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I got in and I did the things that they said. I heard, get a sponsor and work the steps, and so that's ultimately what I did. I had lots of people that wanted to sponsor me, but being in sales my whole life, I said, man, I need somebody tough. If I really want to quit drinking, I don't want this just to be a game. I want somebody who's going to help me.
Going to hold your feet to the fire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I needed a drill sergeant kind of a guy. And somebody invited me to what they called a step study meeting. And so I went to that. It was a stag meeting. It was just for men. And they worked the steps right out of the book in a very rigorous manner, and that's really what I needed. Mm-hmm. There's lots of different ways, like you said, to get sober. I believe that. Mm-hmm. But this is the only way that I know. So this is my experience. So I worked the steps, and I got a sponsor, and I worked the steps. So that happened. And as my awareness began to change, my beliefs began to change, and my attitude and my world around me began to change. And so at that time, that was in 2001, my children were 13 years younger than they are today.
Right.
And my wife was alive and healthy, and so we did all that. And, my son graduated law school, my daughter graduated at junior college, my son got engaged, he got married. All events that I would have, gotten high over or had alcohol within. And I was able to go through all of that without any of that. This is a long way around from the tail to the nose of the elephant to answer your question, but for me it has been, and I believe that recovery is a process and that it takes time. And so when you ask me why am I doing this now, I'm giving a little bit of the background to show you how my journey has been. I was in I've been self-employed for over 25 years in a very competitive industry. And when my wife died, she was sick for 6 years, and I took care of her as a caregiver. I had to hire caregivers to take care of her. And with her passing in September of 2013, again, it's all been part of my journey to get here. And so at the anniversary of her passing, something internally began to change inside me as well. And I do a lot of work. I did start a grief group with some other AA guys who had lost their wives. So there were 4 of us met every week just to talk about the grief process.
Gosh, how therapeutic that must have been for
I'm
you.
I'm telling you, it really was.
Let me hold that thought. Let me ask you a question about that.
Sure.
And my wife is with me right now. We were partners in crime in this thing.
Okay.
I can't imagine her not being around.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you were that way at one point, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I just... In my brain, my twisted thinking, right, I had tried to find a place in there where maybe I could just push a button if something were to happen to her and I'd be okay. But that's not how it works, is it?
It certainly isn't for me and for the guys that I met with. And, and what we found out, and the reason that it happened is a few weeks after she passed. And again, she was sick and was declining for 6 years. She had lupus, which is an autoimmune disease.
Yeah.
She went in for back surgery. She got an infection from the surgery. They gave her some antibiotics, which went into her blood, and she had a downward medical decline, physical decline for 6 years. So when a couple of weeks after she passed, I was talking to a friend in AA who I knew had come in after his wife had passed a year or so after she had passed. And I said to him, when does it get any easier? I was having a hard time with her passing. I'm going to get emotional.
It's okay.
And he said, it's been 10 years since my wife passed away, and it's still difficult for me. And he was remarried. And so I said, wow. So I got together with a couple of other guys who were sober, who I knew whose wives had passed, and we just started meeting. And we just, for that first year, and we really, it kind of has dissolved now as a result of getting through that first year, and I got busy with some other things. But during that first year, there were so many things. There was, my mind about, God, do I want to date somebody? Do I want to fill up that hole that was left inside of me? All kinds of things, and we really helped each other get through that. And I think if anything came out of that, because everybody's experience with grief is going to be different.
You bet.
Ours it was different when my mom passed. It was different when my dad passed. And when my wife passed, the grief experience in each one of those situations was different. And the grief experience for each one of those guys in that group, when their wife passed, their experience was similar but different. The specifics were different. Mm-hmm. And so what I've learned about grief is that it's going to come and go as it pleases, whenever it wants.
Without warning.
Without warning.
Yeah.
Most times without warning.
Yeah.
I mean, and
you see a billboard, you hear a song.
Yeah, exactly.
You have a thought.
Bam. Yeah. The little things like that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And here's the good thing that I learned from all of that is that I can sit with that sadness and be okay. I have a real strong foundation, I believe, in my sobriety. I don't take it for granted. I do stuff. I pray and meditate every day. I go to meetings, still weekly meetings, multiple weekly meetings, and so anyway. So all of this is the genesis to. Yeah. So really, after my wife passed, we did an unveiling at the year mark in September of 2014, and there was something organically happening that I really felt it was time for me to move on with my life. I'm going to get emotional now. Again, my wife is now incorporated within me. She's no longer separate from me.
Wow.
And so I thought I really wanted to do, as I had looked over the last few years about maybe reinventing myself or doing whatever in order to be with her while she was sick and do that. Anyway, I realized that what I really wanted to do was something that I felt was more meaningful. Mm-hmm. And it just so happened that I met somebody that had just finished the program that I'm in now. We got to talking about it. He sent me the link, and I opened it up, and so that's the genesis. I wanted to do something more meaningful, I think, with my life. Right. The reason that I'm doing what I'm doing now. Here's the answer to your question. As I just wanted to do something more meaningful with my life. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, and this is wonderful stuff because there are people that listen to this show that are ready to throw in the towel for whatever reason.
Can I tell you how old I am?
You go right ahead if you want to do that.
Okay. I had a real tough time saying this.
Yeah.
This last year, my birthday's in August, okay?
Okay.
So last August, August 2014, I had this birthday. But from 2013 to 2014, I had a real hard time saying how old I was going to be. Okay?
Oh, wow.
I mean, it really bothered me a lot.
Right.
Okay? And I kept saying all year long, the words and picture just don't go together. So I realized I needed a new picture. So I listened to the Sunday morning show on Channel 2 sometimes, and they said, at the end of the show, they said, in the upcoming week, my birthday's August the 11th, they said on August 18th, Robert Redford's going to be 78. I turned 69 in August of 2014, and that was saying I was 69 sounded so old, and the words and pictures just did not go together. But if Robert Redford could turn 78, I could live with that, and I was okay with that. So now I'll be 70 this August. So you're looking at me. I know the listeners can't see me, but
you don't look 70.
I don't look 70.
No, not at all.
I could easily take 15 years maybe.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
I think partially, although I'm getting more gray hair now, but partially it has to do with my gray hair. But I also think it's I really have, also when my wife died, having problems with the grief thing. I came up with a little phrase, and again, I will spare you all the details of my long stories. My kids tell me I have 10 stories, and they've heard them all, but that I aggressively am pursuing joy. And I feel like that's also why I look and feel so young, is that I think I just have an exuberance for being alive and for, I'm great. I miss my wife like crazy.
Sure.
But I'm so grateful for the time that I had with her, and and all of that now, and just there's so much more. I mean,
and yet you were perfectly, in line and eligible to let the grief take you down and go right back to old behaviors, and and this is what I'm saying is people listening right now, they're like, I don't know, I just, is it all worth it? I'm just, I'm comfortable locked in my house, go to a meeting and listen to all the whiners. I don't want to do that. Go to church, or I got issues. I'm like, join the human race. Right. I mean, we all have issues.
Right.
I have an issue with you locking yourself in your house and not coming out. I'm going to rip the window off your house. Yeah, but I don't. Right. But you're a man who made a decision. No, I'm going to move forward.
Yeah.
And we suffer from terminal uniqueness. We hear that term a lot.
Right.
But the deal of it is pain, grief is grief. It comes in different forms. It comes in different waves. The good news is we can move forward.
Right.
That phrase "moving on" almost seems kind of dark, but moving forward, we can move forward. Keep going up. We can keep looking up. My sponsor says every time we end our discussion, he says, "Keep the faith, brother. Keep the faith, brother." Mm. What's that mean, to keep it? We got to put one foot in front of the other and do the deal, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
And I met some very dear people here over this weekend, and we got to talking, and there's been so many good breakout rooms, and you learn so much, in these workshops and everything. And so I just, as we were talking, sometimes, I don't script this stuff before I talk. I mean, everything is just coming from my heart,
sure,
coming out my mouth,
Yeah.
But I said something to them last night that they resonated with, and I want to share it here because I think it's so important.
Good.
Because so many times, we think that we're ashamed of something that we did or whatever, and in AA they say your secrets will kill you. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what we were talking about, what we were sharing, and again, I'll save you all the backstory because my kids tell me I talk way too much about too little. And
they must know my kids.
Yeah. So, but what I said was then, as I become more authentic, and for me that means being present and being honest with everybody. I mean, I tell everybody I'm in recovery. I have no problem with that. When I interviewed for a job and they were ready to hire me, I said, look, I got to tell you two things. One, I'm in recovery, and two, my wife is sick and I'm going to take care of her. Now, you still want to hire me? Okay, so I always let everybody know that I'm in recovery. So I think as I do that, as I become more authentic, as I get to know myself better, that a lot of people say, oh my God, you're going to be so vulnerable. People will take advantage of you and everything. I think the paradox is that the more vulnerable I become, the more powerful I become, because it gives me an empowerment for me, for who I am. And your opinion of me, or anybody's opinion of me, is really not important to me. Yes, I want to do the best job I can as a human being showing up.
Yeah.
But whether you like it, whether I say something that you like or not, that has nothing to do with me. I'm going to tell you my truth as I know it. And so I just think that, if anybody's worried about saying something to somebody, or you got a secret, man, find somebody that you can trust and just share that with them, because it is a freeing moment in my experience. That's what I found. Yeah.
It is. Gary, thank you so much.
Yeah, man.
It was good to meet you last night at dinner.
Likewise.
And to have you here at our table and sharing some of your experience, strength, and hope. Right on, man.
Thank you, man.
Keep the faith, brother.
You too.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, there you have it. My guest, Gary Sherwin, at our table at the Evolution of Addiction Treatment Conference this year. Be sure to tune in on February 27th for a full 1-hour interview with Gary right here at Take12Radio.com on your internet dial.